Every living thing will eventually die, even you. But if you're lucky enough, you just might live long enough to reach the global average, which is about 79 years old. But humans have definitely far surpassed that. The oldest verified person to ever live was Jeanne Calment in France. She was born on February 21st, 1875, and was alive while Queen Victoria was still on the throne, saw astronauts land on the moon, and even saw the early beginnings of the internet, all before dying on August 4th, 1997, at the ripe old age of 122 years old. Now that's old as hell, especially to us, but compared to some animals on Earth, that's honestly just getting out of diapers. For example, the oldest mammal we know of is the bowhead whale. One was caught off the coast of Alaska in 2007 and had a harpoon fragment embedded in its blubber. The weapon itself was believed to have been shot around 1890 or during the height of America's whaling industry, making it at least 115 to 130 years old. But they can get much older. Some specimens have been estimated to be around 200 years old by scientists analyzing the proteins and amino acids in the whale's eye. Living more than twice as long as the average human is very impressive, but this gentleman of a reptile has nearly managed that while living a remarkably peaceful life. Believed to be born in 1832, Jonathan the giant tortoise spent his first 50-ish years living a normal tortoise life in the Seychelles. But in 1882, he was tortoise napped and transported to St. Helena and gifted to the island's future governor. In his new plantation home, he spent most of his days roaming the ground, grazing on grass, and being taken care of by his servants. Because of this, he ended up reaching an outstanding 194 years old, and counting, as of 2026. Living nearly 2 whole-ass centuries is very impressive, but there's an animal that is more than twice Jonathan's age. Off the coast of Iceland in 2006, scientists were studying how ocean temperature and climate change affects marine environments. To do this, they collected clams and analyzed its growth rings much like a tree. However, these rings, though, they contain information on the environmental conditions throughout the whole clam's life. One clam in particular that they collected was just like the rest until they cracked them open like a cold one and realized it was 507 years old. That means this clam was born in 1499 or during the Ming Dynasty's rule. Because of this, they named the now dead clam Ming, making this clam one of the oldest animals ever discovered. Or does it? 507 years is almost unimaginably old, but we're done talking about the oldest age in an animal. Now we're going to be looking at species that have been here before humans and even dinosaurs. What you're currently looking at now isn't Kabuto from Pokemon. It's actually a horseshoe crab. These guys only have an average lifespan of around 40 to 50 years, but the real kicker is that these guys have been mostly unchanged for the last 450 million years. That makes them older than literal dinosaurs. Not only that, but trees have only been around for about 385 million years, which means the horseshoe crab was already considered ancient when the first forests started popping up. That fact alone is quite mind-blowing, but there's a creature still out there that's been around twice as long. Sea sponges first came into existence 650 to 890 million years ago. These invertebrates are organless filter feeders that pioneered the AFK lifestyle. They're so old that they predate the Cambrian explosion by more than 100 to 300 million years. But the sponge I want to talk about specifically is the glass sponge. Their lineage has been traced back about 570 million years and survived 5 of the most destructive extinction events in the lineage's lifetime. But that's only the species' history. Living in the cold, deep, and stable waters of the ocean causes these sponges to grow extremely slow and gives them an incredibly slow metabolism. As a result, some specimens have been estimated to be about 9,000 years old or even older. That means they have been around since before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, and even before written history as a whole. In other words, that means during all of recorded human history, from the fall of ancient empires to the Industrial Revolution, these guys have just been sitting at the bottom of the ocean doing absolutely nothing but filter feeding uninterrupted, ultimately making the glass sponge one of the oldest animals ever discovered.